Okay, my friends, prepare yourself. This is going to be a lot of fun. You see what's up here? This is in the microscope. It's an arrowhead, you know, just a normal looking arrowhead. And you have to know how to read the rock in order to nap it, to create these facets that turn into an arrowhead. Well, this is called desert drifters, and they go out and they mountain climb and so forth. They're climbing straight up this mountain. It's just unbelievable. And somebody at some point has carved these little pockets here and there so they can a foothold to go up. Now, they might have been 1,000 years ago they carved, or there might have been 100 years ago. There's really no way to tell, because you might be able to tell just a smidge, but the age of the rock, you're not going to be able to tell a big difference in the aging of the rock. So it's hard to determine whether it was not that long ago or it was very, very long ago. But there is pockets that go up here to the top. Now, at the top, they found something that does look like an arrowhead. And I looked at it and I contemplated it when I saw it, and I said, and I saw some things that indicated no, and so I saw some things that indicated yes. And at that point, I couldn't make any determination, so I just went on about my business and their business, which I'm going to go back through this video because there's some other things that I discovered since the first video I did about this video. Because there's some amazing things that these guys, it's amazing what these guys are doing, going out into the deserts, into the mountains. They're seeing all these things, but they don't really fully understand what they're seeing. I want to comment as to what these things really were, and they're biological. Now, was this arrowhead created by somebody, or was this just a natural phenomenon? I'm going to take a look at it. You can make your own determinations. I haven't really decided. I got to be perfectly honest with you. Boy, it sure looks like a good arrowhead. It looks just as good as that. We'll see in a second. Here goes. All right, so here he's going to go up this hill. I've got the sound turned off, and I've got it playing about 3/4 speed. So he's looking straight up this hill, and they're digging their feet into these little divots, and he's showing his feet. That's how they're going to grab at this stuff. Now they're going up these little cuts, and somebody made them at some point in time. Now, what I like to look at is all of this stuff, which indicates to me everything is biological, and I look for what I can see that I can point out that is biology. And there's going to be some things that I found in here that as they're going up, I can see them, like all of these things. This is not just sedimentation and erosion. And then where lichen and moss and stuff is growing is the red and the black blood. And you're going to see some is green and mossy looking, like that, and some is black and then has the lichen growing out of it. But this is all biology. Now, he's going straight up this thing. These guys are crazy. Now, you see that line there? That didn't just happen by accident. That's a transition between two different types of tissue. All right, now he's going to go up this. I mean, just, as far as I'm concerned, that's like straight up. You see, there's another transition up there. Now he's coming. Now, at the top, they're going to find something that certainly to me looks like an arrowhead. Now, look at this. That looks semi-dangerous. Now, these look to me like they've been carved long, long ago. Who did it? I don't know. But the thing I find interesting, let me back that up just one smidge, because there's something here that's very interesting. What's this? The hell is this? I'd like to see if they could, that looks like a tube running through there, which I would probably think it's an artery. And I have arteries, not quite that big, but here's one here. Hold on. Well, it was around here somewhere. Hold on a second. Here it is. Oh! All right, that could be one of these. That's an artery. And I ground this down right here so that I could see it in the microscope. And you can see every single layer, and there is about 4 or 5 layers in there, absolutely flawless. So I would say that's probably an artery. All right, so that's number one. These were long ago. That didn't just happen yesterday. That's the key. You really can't tell for sure, but it looks to me like they were long ago. And this looks to me like there's some kind of tube there. So they just keep going by. They're moving up there. They're going up through there. Boom, 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 boom. And there's that tube. What that is, I'd love to know. Now, look at all this stuff. This isn't like something scraped off of here. These are layers of tissue. All right, and he's coming up these layers of tissue, and he gets up to the top. Thank God he's still alive. Now they're looking down thinking, well, it's a good thing we didn't die today. Now all of this stuff is the kind of stuff that I look for. I look for all these abrupt transition, all these interwoven muscles, basically. Now, they're going to come up to the top here. And they're walking along, they're looking at this, which I consider basement layer of some kind of tissue, whatever it was. It looks like it's just dried up and cracked up stuff, but it's dried and cracked up skin, which happens to you if you don't stay hydrated. Now, all of a sudden they see this thing. Now, stop and think. What are we looking at? He's going to lift this up, and it looks exactly like an arrowhead. But why is this laying on top of this? And it's got little bits and pieces of it laying around next to it. Let's see if we can determine, did somebody try to make an arrowhead right here and then for some reason just left it laying here? Because these are the chips, I believe, came off of this layered stone. And that's how you nap a stone. And you have to be able to read the stone and be able to nap where it comes up and bring it back to where it's coming on this side, so you end up having an arrowhead. You know, like this. You have to nap both sides. And then you're going to have all these flakes. Well, is that what they were doing? Why would they just leave it there? Now, I'm going to show it a little more detail on this. And I want you to start to think, well, let's think together about what's happening here. Is there a process here? Or is this just accidental? I find it very interesting that the steps led right up to here. But I also find it very interesting that it's just laying here all by itself. There's nothing else around it, and they just left it here. If they did work on it here, or could it have just accidentally fallen into these pieces that make an arrowhead? Life is so... I see everything as a mystery. I really do now. Because, you know, if you don't take the time to look at it. They looked at this and they thought about it. They said, wow, this looks like an arrowhead. And it's so obviously it looks like an arrowhead. But is it? That's the key. Can we make any determination? That's where I go. I want something material that I can wrap my hands around and say, all right, here's how they make arrowheads. Did they do that here? How did this form? Why is this here? Why did the steps lead up to it? Why is there, it doesn't appear there's anything else like it right here. Did they carry some piece over here and put it there and start working on it and for some reason had to run away? I don't know. All right, so let's step back just a second here. They're coming up the hill and they're getting to the top of the rise here. So those steps led right up to where they are now. So they meet together and they start to come forward and they find this thing that looks like an arrowhead. Now I think they found it where they were just standing a minute ago. So they're continuing up and they're seeing some things, and here it is right here. Now, let them get up close and personal. Now, they're looking at this and all the sculpting of it and so forth. And that to me is erosion. All right. However, once you look at it in its totality, all right, now you see this bump here? We're going to be talking about that. But look at the architecture. I mean, it just certainly looks like an arrowhead. I mean, you know, this is, I believe, an arrowhead replica, but it's basically very, very similar. And it's pretty good size. Now, let's continue on here. We're going to move it around, and then they're going to stand it up. That is absolutely flawlessly, perfectly carved, if it was carved. Now, again, I have one here that's, I believe it's a replica of a, but it's napped. And this is just highly eroded. Now, you see where he's standing? There's nothing else like this here, just this. Why is just this? There should be littered with these things if it was just something laying around here. Did somebody bring this up here and try to nap it over here for some reason? I don't know. But he's holding it up, and here's the size of it. Now they're going to come up a little closer. Boom. There's the pick. Now what can we see from this? This could have been napped. I'm seeing some marks that we're going to take a good close look at this. This could have been napped. And I will show you what I mean by napped, because that's what this is. This has been napped. And they go snap, snap, snap. And I can show you the tool marks that made these snaps. Can we see them here? That's the key. If we can see them here, then we're golden. Because this, if I came up and saw this eroded away like this, and I said, ooh, that's nice. It's got a nice sharp shape going this way. All we got to do is shave off this, and we'll have a nice arrowhead or spearhead or whatever it is. And I think I might see some marks here. Let's take a real close look. All right, this is the artifact. Whether it's an arrowhead or not, I don't know. It sure looks like it. Now, in the microscope, I have an arrowhead that is napped. Now, let's see what we can see from this. Let me turn the light down a little lower, might be able to see better. Well, what it is at the tip here, they snap these pieces off to the edge. One will rise up and the other will snap down. Now, that's the way an arrowhead is normally made. Sometimes they'll nap from both, well, they do nap from both sides, but primarily it comes up and then they nap from this side down to bring it back so they have an arrowhead tip. Now let's come back down this and you'll see more. Now these are the napping marks. There was some lump here and they went and they snapped these layers off. And that's what napping is. So this at one time had a thick layer up here. And I can see this is connective tissue. That's the tough stuff. Connective tissue is the tough stuff. And they just snapped it off. That's what these to flake off the bigger stuff and to bring it down so that there's a shape to it. And a very sharp shape at that. Now, as it comes down to the bottom, this is where it flares out at the bottom. You see here? Over here, this looks like somebody knew what they were doing. That's vein blood and that's artery. And I believe this is where the connective tissue comes together. And I'm not kidding you. I think that's a spurlock. I'm not kidding you. That's where connective tissue comes together. You see all this white stuff coming together and these little flappy things. When you get away from that white stuff, you get way over here, you start to get almost into flesh. You see how it's pinky looking over here? You get over here, you're really into the deep white stuff, and that is the really hard stuff. So this, to my way of thinking, was a piece that was selected for its toughness, and then it would hold together. But you can see that's where it was napped. So hopefully you understand that. Let me back this out so you see the whole thing at once. Hold on. All right, I showed you the little arrowhead I have here. And I believe this is connective tissue, and I think that's a little tiny blood vessel, but it's absolutely biology, just as the one that they're holding is a gigantic one, which is layers of body tissue. And I got a new idea on this. Originally, I was on a fence, just accidental, but it's just too perfect to be accidental. And I look here, and I think I see gouges. Do you see that? I don't know. Look up there. You see how I showed you the scratches on the other one, the scratch marks? Like they were napping it. I now think that this was determined to be unusable because when you get down inside here, this is just nothing more than soft sandstone. It has a very soft sandstone core. It's not like this. This is layers of membranes. But it goes too quickly down into the red flesh, and this would never hold up. That's my opinion based on what I'm seeing here. And I think they just abandoned it. I think they were carving an arrowhead or a spearhead, and they just decided, no, this is not working. It's just not good. That's why there's all these little bits and pieces around this here. Now, think of this. If this guy was a giant making this, he'd be able to hold that in his hand. So he didn't carry something from this big gigantic thing over there, oh, 10 people hauling it over here. No, he carried it over in his hand. He said, okay, I'm going to make an arrowhead. And he's got down to this. He says, no good, just leave it here and forget about it. That's what I see here. That's what I'm thinking now. You make your own determination, but I don't think this would have held up. See, there's nothing in the area here. There's nothing in this area that is even similar to this stone whatsoever. So it's just laying here all by itself for no reason out in the middle of this area. I think he carried it up here. Now, the other thing that I found interesting was how close the steps were to each other. Whoops, you come back here and you can see the steps they're pretty close. So how big was this guy? I would think he would have gigantic footprints between them, but who knows? Maybe they had little ones with them. I just don't know anymore. There's so much to think about now. Once you realize all this stuff was real, this is not just a joke. And you see all those layers? That would have been perfect if it stayed this kind of texture. But then it went into the sand. And the sand just doesn't make it. You see, it's just falling apart. And that's why all of this stuff is laying here, all by itself. But boy, I'll tell you, this is absolutely flawless to that part. So it looks to me like they worked it to the point where they were going to do the tip, and they realized this is not going to hold together. All right, this is flawlessly perfect. This is just exactly what you want. And then you nap this side, and it meets up this way with this side floating up this way. So you got your napping is done, but you can't nap sand. That's my new saying. You just can't nap no sand. All right, so you know that this is interstitium balls, and this is the muddy, fleshy stuff that goes along with the interstitium balls. They have run down in here. They're very, very well positioned everywhere. This is the basement layer of skin. So if between here and the top of the skin is these balls and flesh that can move around. That's just exactly like it's on your body. They call these the Moki marbles. And they're everywhere where there was a lot of skin. And they're in you, thousands and millions of them. And they're all over us. And that's how our skin can pull and go in this way and that way. There's little tiny straps on those that have eroded away. The balls are tough, tough, tough. They don't erode. The straps go bad. And I can show you you know what? I'm going to do it right now, my belt. It's the most perfect example of this you'll ever see. Okay, my friends, this is so cool. This is what's called the fluid-filled highway interstitium. It's a fabric that coats the basement layer of your skin primarily. These are found primarily in the skin, in that layer of tissue just below the top skin, and the basement layer is this fleshy stuff which has all these little fabrics, and balls attached to them and a gooey mess that goes along with that. These are all eroded away. The skin's gone and the flesh has just turned into mud and the balls have rolled down to a little divot here. But they would be perfectly saturated everywhere, as I will show you, and then I will show you an actual example of this and the fibers. All right, I just showed you the hikers there showing these balls all in that muddy area. They're probably somewhere out in this area. This is where the Moki marbles are, out in Arizona, all over the place out there. There's just one gigantic creature, as is the entire Earth. And this is what's left over after you erode the skin. Same as here. You see these balls? These are the same balls. That is the skin of a creature. That is skin. And it is eroding away as the waves come in and wash the flesh into mud. Right here. This is primarily just the balls here, but I showed you just a second ago all that mud was in around it where those guys were hiking. Now what is this made of? How did this happen? It's biology. There it is right there. It's what's called interstitium. You see under your skin? There's your skin layers right there. This is under your skin. You got all these little balls and they got all these little tiny straps that go. This is very close. Now I'm going to show you this same structure though in giganticness, because it is. These balls were everywhere, like everywhere around there, and then they had straps. The straps erode away because they're weak compared to the balls. But you see the brown? The brown are the straps. And they're just really fibrous, tough straps. And they anchor in all over the place in your skin. And the balls hold it. And then they can float around. Now, this is kind of new. This is pretty new. This interstitium is a new thing. There's a layer of fluids in here that nobody ever knew about. And it's just been discovered. I published a paper on it in 2015, but they accepted it in 2018 saying, yes, it's an interstitium, a newfound organ. And it's this fluid layer right here. It's not what I was just showing you with all those balls. Those all balls are down in here. The fluid-filled highway is what I discovered in my mud fossils. I said, they all have this. What the hell is this? Well, by the time they did autopsies, that fluid was gone. It was just a flat layer. They thought it was a thick membrane layer, but it wasn't. It was an open layer filled with fluid. And I could see it in my work, and they couldn't. So anyway, it now is understood this is now considered the biggest organ in the human body because it's one gigantic system connected. It's a tubular, fluid-filled network, a gigantic system connected throughout the body. That's precisely what I wrote in 2015, and that's exactly what they accept now. So we now know that we have the fluid-filled highway, and that is the separation that protects you from invasion. This is what they didn't understand. They never knew this. So we have a whole new way of dealing with medical issues now, because this is your immunity. That right there is your immune system, basically. Once you penetrate that, now you have invasion. That's what disease is invasion. Chronic disease is continuous invasion. You have to have the right chemistry in there. That's a whole other issue, but I do deal with that. Now, can I show you these straps and balls? Absolutely. And what straps and balls? Well, let's make sure you understand what I'm showing you. Is these straps and balls. And once they erode, all you got left is balls. These have the balls in the walls. And then they got the balls in the mud. But the mud is nothing more than the wall. So it's what you call all tied together. See, here's some more of these marbles. All of these are the basement layer of the skin. Now, I'm going to show you in my microscope my belt. And we're going to be looking at the marbles here are crushed in my belt. They're going to be crushed because that's how they do it. When they roll it in tanning. And then they tan it with some kind of chemistry. And then I will show you the straps and the balls, because in my stuff the straps have not eroded away because it's a belt and it has to be flexible. And the straps are what gives it a hell of a lot of strength. I will show you, and it's just amazing, the strength of leather. This is a split cowhide belt. Get ready. All right, this is freaky. I'm not kidding you. This is freaky. These little black spots are the tendon balls. Well, they call them tendon entices. In the skin, I'm not even sure what they call them because they're just these little tiny balls. They never pay any attention to them before. And they have these fibers sticking out of them. You say, what fibers? All I see is some brown looking stuff. Well, let me see if I can tune this in a little closer here. Now, I guess that's about the best you're going to see. But I'm going to show you those fibers because at where the belt loop comes in, they're stretched out. And don't forget, the black are the balls, okay, of those fibers that I showed you. Now, what about the fibers? Well, here they are right here. You see that? Those are the fibers. Every one of those black balls has one of these fibers. And that's not just one fiber. In that fiber is literally thousands of fibrils. And you say, oh, Roger, how can you prove that? Well, that's how I can prove it. That's one of those fibers. And that's all the stuff coming out of it. You see up there? Look, I'm going to try to home in close on one of these so you can see. Let me just get a good shot. Hold on. All right, this might be the best shot you can see. This is where the little latch goes through and all the fibers have been stretched and pulled. Each one of these is a fiber on its own, but you see that? Can you see how fine those little fibers are? Can you see that? You see that? Each one of those fibers has 10 bazillion little other fibers coming out of it. It's this. It's that. That's how incredibly strong leather is. Because that makes such a strong, tight weave that it's, that's why leather belts are so tough. You could pull a truck with a leather belt. I mean, seriously, I'm not kidding you. These things you just can't hardly break them. Leather is tough. And you see, that's all we were looking at is my belt in the microscope. This is a split cowhide leather belt. And it's thick and it's tough. It's tough as hell. They used to use leather as the belts for all of their ancient machines. Well, I don't say all, but most of them. Wherever they had a pulley going to another pulley, they could put leather in there. That thing would run for a bazillion years. They just don't break. It's tough, tough stuff. All right, I showed you the bottom of the belt where all those straps were. This is the top of the belt where we can still see where the balls were. But it's got a little more, let me see if I can focus in here and there. You can see the creases in the leather and so forth, but this is rolled and they put chemistry in there and then they put some kind of tanning stuff on there to give it a color and that, I'm sure. But these little balls are where those straps are. This is what your skin is made out of. And a cowhide is the same as your skin. I think you can see those little balls. They're everywhere. All right, and that's on that side. And the other side shows the straps because it's what's called split cowhide. They just rip it off of the membrane. And then they tan it and scrape it and all of that stuff. And you end up with a belt or a leather jacket or whatever. All right, so you can see what we're looking at right there, and that is basically identical to what we're looking at down here. All right, that's all those little tiny straps are involved in that, and this is where all the Moki marbles are in Huntington Beach over in United Kingdom, and this is the new interstitium, all of this stuff. Now, I have other stuff here that has been overlooked that we're going to be looking at. I mean, this is just everything's been overlooked. Look at this. Look at what they're talking about. This is about some kind of impact. This is coal, which is nothing more than solidified flesh and blood primarily. It's muscle, red and black blood, basically. This, I believe, is the fluid-filled highway, and above that is this fleshy area, and above that is the skin, which is they call mudstone. This is nothing more than mud fossil, layering. This is not just an impact layer. What impact of what? No. This is the layer of interstitium, which is the boundary layer that separates your good, flesh down here, which has turned into coal. Everything will, flesh and blood and all that will turn into hydrocarbons. They break down into hydrocarbons. And the more refined it is, the more fleshy flesh it is there. Instead of connective tissue, the better grade of coal or gas and oils you will get. That's coal here. That's a different grade of coal. They're showing iridium concentrations. Well, iridium is just nothing more than an atom, and it has a certain weight, and it will sink to a certain area. And it's probably, maybe they're finding out iridium is linked to the membrane layer. I don't know. It could be an iridium concentration. I never checked it. If membranes have an excess of iridium in them, I don't know. But to my way of thinking, if it has an excess of iridium in this layer, it's more than likely because your body needs it in that layer for some reason. It's not because it was an impact. All right, so my claim is there is nothing but biology, such as these mountains over here. Well, explain to me how those formed if you're a geologist. And then, as you saw, my belt is made of the same thing as Moki marbles. A little smaller, but not, quite obvious it's the same thing. And the straps are quite obviously the straps that are in the interstitium layer, and all of that stuff is quite obviously what all those Moki marbles and so forth came from. And on top of that, on Mars, there is the Mars Morse code, which not only has the Moki marbles, it has the interstitium fabric as well, because it didn't erode in a wet condition. It eroded from dusting. I'll show you that right now. Okay, hold on to your hats. These are the Moki marbles, and you saw the straps in my belt. Now I'm going to turn the lights on. That's going to flush out, and we're going to look down at the Moki marbles and the balls that have eroded at the Huntington Beach in Huntington Cliffs in the United Kingdom. And this is the interstitium, which this part here is where the red is. This right here is literally the skin. I mean, it's the skin. It's the stuff at the top of your skin, and it just flakes off. It's made to be disposable. But once you hit this layer, you're into your flesh. That's where you can get damaged. Now, this is where your interstitium is, all that fabric. And when all that cheap stuff erodes, you end up just with the balls. I showed you the balls and the straps in my belt. Well, let me show you something else that should shock you. So what you just saw is the interstitium. Well, what is this? What, my friends, is that? Well, guess what it is? It is interstitium. These are the balls. These are the straps. Now, I showed you in my belt, when you pull and pull, you'll end up with a strap coming off of the ball. I showed you very clearly. And that strap is really, really a lot of fibers. But the ball is just one ball. So when the flesh covers this, the ball is locked. The fiber can go this way and that way, and any which way it wants. But it will always come back because it has that little wrinkle to it. Now, you see this wrinkle and this wrinkle? That is literally a wrinkle in the skin, just like you have wrinkles in your skin. And it's pinched together here, which means it has to be stretched here if it's going to be pinched here. And it is stretched there. And because of the erosion factor, which is different than what you normally would see, And I know why it's different. We have the milky marble looking things here, which are the tendon enthesis for your skin. And then we have the straps that have not completely eroded. Some of them have. These are gone. And why are they gone up here? Well, because it's up here. These are in a well, so to speak. This is a bump on a bump. So as the wind sweeps through here, it's actually dusted off and eroded the cheap stuff, but not the balls. The balls are tough. They are tough. They're just little tiny, almost like metal balls. But the straps, as you saw, are not so tough. This is what skin should look like, about like this. You could pull it this way, pull it this way, pull it that way. It's made to do that, and then it will come back where it was supposed to be. Now this, my friends, is what's called the Mars-Morris Code. This is on Mars. And don't tell me they haven't gone to Mars. Please don't do that here. You know, I follow this stuff very, very well. It's just an argument that I just don't want to have here, please. Now, that's the Mars-Morris Code. Not only that, this is the Mars muscle. They're saying this happened continually over millions of years, these little layers. No, those are what's called sarcomeres. You see these little blocks going this way, and then you got all those little stripes going that way? That's connective tissue, and it pulls in. This is the actual red blood. That's the red blood that has eroded, dusted out of these. It hasn't eroded. There is no water up on Mars that runs. That's why you don't see any little rivulets. This is dust. This is literally dust. If you put water on there, it'll just run all over. And you have all kinds of rivulets. This is just very dusty dust. And this is up on Mars. They had the rover there. I followed it since the day they put Curiosity up there. And I alerted to NASA. I said, you guys got biology all over the place. That is muscle. Want to see what muscle is? I'll show you muscle. That is muscle. And the Mars crab is a gigantic artery. This is what happens to muscle. It erodes. The red stuff it's very fluidy, it's movable, it's malleable, and it just dusts out, which is all this red stuff and this. So what do you end up with? These are missing, and all the little red stuff is missing. You end up with all of the connective tissue in blocks, a block of connective tissue. The red stuff is gone. All the red stuff goes. So you end up with just white stuff going all the way across and splits going. Is that what we saw just a minute ago on Mars? Yes, it absolutely is. There they are right there. There's your splits, and here's all your little stripes going this way. And all the red dust that was in here, the red fleshy stuff, just dusts out. It's just what it is. And it is on Mars. You see that? This is a blow-up of this. Well, what is this? It's an artery. Oh, come on. Yes. They called it the Mars crab, and it was a big deal in 2015. Huge thing. Wow, look at this. What's this? And NASA just says, oh, that's pareidolia, forget about it. Well, what is it? They never could explain, and they still won't engage. It's an artery, and these are the little blood vessels going in to service the muscle, and you need a ton of them. I have the exact same thing in my shop here. That is terrestrial. It's small, obviously. This is gigantic. These are the muscle sarcomeres. And that artery is feeding muscle with blood. You need a ton of blood to make muscle work. This is all up on Mars. We've spent billions and billions, probably trillions of dollars doing all this stuff, and they still have no idea what they're looking at. They still refuse to engage. Don't talk to us about that. I sent all this to everybody. I sent to the universities, I sent to NASA, JPL. Houston, we have a problem.